Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take a terrifying stack of research, reports, and threat intelligence and synthesize it into the knowledge you need to stay safe and stay ahead.
It's good to be back.
Today, we are undertaking a deep dive into an attack vector that is, well, it's rapidly becoming one of the most successful and, frankly, most demoralizing forms of social engineering we have ever encountered.
Yeah.
We are talking about the ClickFix attack.
It truly is a paradigm shift. I mean, for decades, cyber defense focused on stopping malicious code from entering a system via a flaw. A buffer overflow, a zero-day, a compromised download.
Right, something technical.
Exactly. ClickFix abandons all that. It's an attack engineered purely on human trust, where the victim is convinced to execute the malicious code themselves.
You become the threat actor's most valuable tool.
You are the tool.
Precisely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to pull apart the mechanics of ClickFix, what it is, why it works so brilliantly, and how the threat actors have industrialized it into a turnkey weapon system. And crucially, we need to understand what defenses, both technical and behavioral, actually stand a chance against a threat that is designed to bypass traditional security layers entirely.
The urgency of this deep dive, it really can't be overstated. We aren't talking about some niche threat anymore.
Not at all. The tracking data we've seen across major security firms, it indicates that ClickFix attacks saw a staggering, a 500% increase in just the first half of 2025 alone.
500%. That's incredible.
It is. It now accounts for roughly 8% of all observed initial access attempts. It has moved from, an experimental trick used by high-end groups to a standardized and highly profitable industrialized threat vector.
So let's start with the basics. For anyone listening who's hearing this term for the first time, what fundamentally defines a ClickFix attack?
Okay, so ClickFix is a sophisticated social engineering technique centered on psychological manipulation. It always, and I mean always, involves a malicious web page that displays a high-fidelity fake error message.
High fidelity is the key word there.
Absolutely. That error could be anything. A technical glitch, a security warning, a broken CAPI-TCHA, or even a fake system crash.
The critical ingredient, though, is the instruction that follows that error.
Precisely. The page immediately offers an appealing, simple, quick fix to whatever problem it just showed you. And that fix is always the same toxic combination.
The victim is told to copy a long, complex, sort of obfuscated string of text.
Right. And then manually paste and execute it into a native Windows function.
We're talking about things like the Win+R dialog box, which opens the run function, or sometimes, a terminal through the Win+X quick access menu.
And that combination, that act of copying a command and running it manually, is the whole genius of the attack.
That is the core insight. This relies on what is sometimes called paste jacking or clipboard hijacking.
Exactly, because the execution of the code is entirely user-initiated. The user pressed Win+R, the user pressed Ctrl+V, the user pressed Enter. It completely circumvents traditional security measures.
Because those measures are looking for automated malicious downloads or code exploiting a vulnerability. This is neither.
It's a trust exploit, not a code exploit. It exploits the human tendency to trust what looks like a system error and to follow the instructions provided to fix an immediate problem.
And the problem they present is often designed to create immediate anxiety or urgency.
That's the key. When you see a blue screen of death or an error that says you can't access an urgent financial document, your critical thinking capacity just plummets.
And the attacker provides a solution that looks technical and legitimate, a long string of code.
But it doesn't require any technical knowledge to execute. You just copy, paste, and run. You feel like you're fixing it.
Let's look at the scope here. The sources we've reviewed paint a picture of highly diverse targeting. This isn't just aimed at one specific industry.
No. The breadth of targets confirms that the lures are generic enough and the mechanism effective enough to work just about anywhere. We have tracking data confirming campaigns targeting high-technology firms.
Where the data is king.
Exactly. Financial services, obviously, for immediate monetary gain. We're seeing manufacturing, wholesale, and retail sectors, often through their supply chain portals.
And even critical infrastructure, utilities, and energy.
Yes. And crucially, sectors that rely on rapid transaction turnaround, like professional and legal services and the hospitality sector.
Those are high-value, high-stress targets.
Yeah.
You can imagine a lawyer needing urgent access to a client file, right?
Or a hotel manager dealing with a major reservation cancellation. The inherent agency in those jobs makes them much more susceptible to these panic-based fixes.
State and local government targets are also heavily hit.
Very heavily. often with the goal of credential gathering, which can then be used for much larger attacks down the line.
So what's the worst-case scenario then? After a successful ClickFix execution, what happens next?
Well, these lures are proving to be an extremely efficient initial access vector. So once that script runs, it typically installs a remote access Trojan, a RAT, or an info stealer.
And that's just the beginning.
That's the foothold. From there, the initial access quickly pivots to credential gathering. This enables full mail theft, lateral movement inside the network, and often the complete operational takeover of the targeted organization.
Which then enables the big one, ransomware.
That's the end game. ClickFix is the delivery driver for some of the most destructive attacks we're seeing today.
That sets the stage beautifully for why this matters.
Oh.
Let's move into our second section and detail the mechanics of the deception itself. How do these threat actors successfully get users to these malicious pages, and what makes the lure so convincing?
The delivery vectors are a masterclass in distribution, really. They ensure the user reaches the lure page through an avenue they already trust, whether that's their email inbox, a search result, or a compromised website they visit every day.
And the classic starting point is still the phishing email.
Of course. We see sophisticated high-volume campaigns using invoice and payment lures, campaigns like Storm 1607 and Darkgate, or Storm 0426, which used Minceloader.
And Storm 0426 targeted German users.
It did, yes. Often impersonating web hosting providers to deliver Minceloader, which is a preliminary access tool. The user believes they're just fixing an issue with an overdue bill.
And then there's the use of institutional trust.
Yeah.
I mean, impersonating government agencies. That June 2025 campaign targeting the U.S. Social Security Administration, the SSA, that was particularly clever.
It was a fascinating case study in obfuscation. The emails claim there was an urgent issue with the recipient's SSA statement, required immediate action.
And the call to action button was deceptively labeled download statement.
Everything about that email leveraged the innate trust in government communication and, the fear of losing benefits, but the real trick was how they routed the traffic.
This is the part that gets me. They used a Google Ads URL redirector.
Exactly. And this is key because so many email security filters, they rely on static blacklists or scanning the visible URL. By using a legitimate Google Ads intermediary link, the initial email just sails past those security checks.
So when the user clicks, the link performs a rapid, invisible redirect to the final malicious destination.
Which, in that case, was a highly convincing spoofed SSA site hosted on a Spanish TLD, access-sa-gov.es.
So if I hover my mouse over the link in the email, I see a Google Ads URL, which looks totally benign. I don't see the real malicious destination.
And that completely undermines a foundational piece of security awareness training we've been teaching for 15 years. It weaponizes the user's learned behavior. The goal is just to get the user past that email gateway and onto the landing page.
Outside of email, malvertising seems to be a major distributor.
Oh, absolutely enormous. We saw campaigns in April 2025 where sheer volume was the key. Users trying to stream free or pirated movies online, they often interact with numerous dubious ads.
Sure, you're clicking around trying to close pop-ups, press play.
And when you click that video player, that action triggers malicious JavaScript. It covertly launches a ClickFix scam page in a new separate browser tab in the background.
And because these are mass market sites, the traffic volume must be staggering.
It generates tens of thousands of unique visits a day. The cost per click for the threat actors is tiny, but the conversion rate is high because the users are already in a context where they expect pop-ups and minor technical glitches.
Finally, there's the drive-by compromise. Taking over legitimate websites. This is perhaps the most insidious way to deliver the lure.
It certainly leverages the highest level of implicit trust. Threat actors like Storm 0249, who were known for email campaigns, shifted their focus to compromising legitimate, high-traffic websites, often targeting outdated WordPress installations.
And what would a user see?
When a user visited the compromised site, the original content would display for just a second, just long enough for their brain to confirm they were on the expected domain, and then the page would instantly be replaced by the ClickFix lure.
And what did that replacement lure usually spoof?
Often, it was designed to look like a standard web security component, specifically the Cloudflare turnstile human verification page.
Which you see all the time.
Dozens of times a day. If your browser suddenly flashes that verification screen, your immediate impulse is to comply. You just assume it's a standard security step for that website.
Okay, let's move inside the fake interface itself. The sources emphasize this high-fidelity clone aspect. These attackers aren't using, Comic Sans and clip art. They're hiring professional designers.
They are meticulously crafted. Let's look at the #BLIYX campaign that targeted the hospitality sector. It used that fake Booking.com reservation cancellation alert urgency again, and it directed victims to a clone hosted on lowhouse.com.
And the moment the victim clicked to refresh the page,
The browser was forced into full screen mode, and the fake blue screen of death appeared.
the fake Windows BSOD. That's a masterstroke of psychological manipulation. Why does that work so well?
It works because a system crash triggers immediate panic. You think you're about to lose critical data. And when the computer itself offers a seemingly clear path out of the crash, perform this quick fix, press Win+R, sheet off plus V, enter, the user perceives the computer itself as offering the solution.
They drop their guard entirely.
Completely.
And what is the one crucial fact, the one tell, that separates a real BSOD from a fake one?
This is the definitive red flag everyone listening must know. A real Windows blue screen of death will never, ever offer recovery instructions or suggest pressing Win+R.
Never.
Never. It displays a stop code, and it tells you to restart or seek professional help. The moment a BSOD provides a fix that involves copying and pasting anything, that is your 100% confirmation of trickery.
Staff training really needs to focus on that single distinction.
Absolutely. Beyond the BSOD, though, the verification and CAP-TCA screens are the real workhorse of ClickFix.
They're the most versatile lures, right?
Yep.
Because they could be inserted onto any compromised site or disguised as any app loading screen.
Exactly. They spoof Google Recap TCHA, Cloudflare Turnstile, or just generic "I am not a robot" checks. The sophistication lies in the visual components. They embed JavaScript, hidden iframes, and they leverage legitimate external resources, like font awesome library links, to perfectly mimic the real UI elements.
Can you elaborate on how the JavaScript and these hidden elements actually function in those fake KPTCHA screens?
Sure. Consider the example of the landing page used by BinancePizza.info. That page used an HTML file called field.html, and it was loaded via a hidden iframe. The user can't see it.
So you tick the verification box.
And that triggers JavaScript inside that invisible iframe. That script then animates a fake loading spinner to distract you, and it sends a specific command post message trigger to the main window.
And that trigger is the signal to the main script to activate the malicious clipboard copy.
It's a beautifully synchronized process of distraction and weaponization.
And these lures extend beyond just security checks. They also target productivity apps.
Absolutely. We've seen fake Google Meet or Zoom pages claiming technical issues, maybe a non-functioning microphone or camera that requires a plugin fix.
Or a document.
Right. Fake Microsoft Word or PDF file loading errors needing an urgent patch. They leverage the user's desire to simply get back to work. Even social platforms are hit, with lures spoofing Discord server verification.
Okay, let's get to the core of the attack. The technical mechanics of paste jacking. This is where the weapon is loaded and the security bypass really happens.
The deception works because the user is busy looking at the fake error and the instructions on the screen. The actual malicious component happens silently in the background when they click the button labeled something seemingly benign, like verify or how to fix.
And that click triggers the code.
Exactly. The JavaScript utilizes the clipboard API function, specifically navigator.clipboard.write text, to instantly and invisibly populate the Windows clipboard with a lengthy, weaponized command string.
So the user is completely unaware that what they've just copied is malicious. They think they have a simple verification ID or some benign piece of code.
They have no idea. And then comes the manual execution, which is what breaks security detection.
The visible instructions guide the user through the final steps. Press the Windows key plus R to open the Run dialog.
Press SLRL plus V to paste the command, and finally, enter to execute it.
And because this process is manual and it uses a trusted Windows component, it bypasses network monitoring and most signature-based endpoint defenses.
And it's executed with the current user's privileges, which makes that initial foothold almost guaranteed.
The command string itself is usually heavily obfuscated. That seems to be the critical technical challenge for defenders.
The obfuscation is central to evasion. The threat actors are using a multi-layered approach. We see heavy use of base64 encoding, taking the actual malicious script and turning it into a long string of seemingly random characters and numbers.
They also use things like string concatenation.
Right. Yes, fragmenting the code and rebuilding it at runtime, or employing escaped characters like the caret symbol to break up keywords like PowerShell to avoid detection by security scanners that are looking for those specific command sequences.
And the most sophisticated attacks use something called LO bin stacking. What are LO bins for our audience?
A low bin stands for living off the land binary. These are legitimate, trusted Windows binaries or system tools like PowerShell.exe, curl.exe, certidal.exe, or mshta.exe that are already present on every single machine and are designed to perform complex tasks.
So by stacking these LOL bins, the attacker avoids dropping any new malicious executable.
Exactly. The security system sees trusted Microsoft processes running other trusted Microsoft processes, hiding the true payload delivery.
So instead of a security tool flagging some unknown executable, it sees PowerShell.exe running a command that includes benign-sounding phrases, which I assume is added to fool both the user and automated detection.
That's right. They might nest commands, burying the actual malicious download inside a long PowerShell script that includes comments like Microsoft Defender Services Secure Access. The human brain sees Microsoft Defender and assumes safety. Automated systems often struggle to piece together the entire execution chain hidden across multiple layers of encoding and fragmentation.
Let's move now to Section 3 and examine some specific case studies, because seeing these campaigns in action really illuminates the full technical scope of this threat. We should start with the high-stakes-booking.com BSOD and the deployment of the DCR Remote Access Trojan back in January of 2026.
This campaign demonstrates the synergy between that deep social engineering and advanced LOL bin abuse. It specifically targeted the European hospitality sector using those urgent phishing emails about large canceled reservations.
And the victims were pushed to that high-fidelity clone on lowhouse.com, where they encountered the fake BSOD and followed the ClickFix instructions.
Correct. And once the victim pasted and executed that initial PowerShell command, the technical sequence that led to the full system compromise was designed to be fast and evasive.
What happened first?
First, it distracted the user by opening a decoybooking.com admin page in the foreground, make them think it worked. In the background, the script initiated a download of a malicious .NET project file, specifically named vproj.
And this is where the LOL bin abuse gets really ingenious.
It does. They used a legitimate compiler, msbuild.exe, to compile and execute the malware.
Can you explain why using a compiler for execution is so stealthy?
msbuild.exe is the Microsoft build engine. It's a core component used by developers to compile code. It is an inherently trusted binary on any Windows system with development tools.
So by using msbuild.exe,
The threat actor gets the system to use its own trusted tools to process and execute the malicious vproj file. This looks like a development task to many traditional security systems, not a malware execution. It's camouflage at the process level.
and the final payload, DCR-RAT, was deployed via process hollowing. What does that mean for our audience?
Process hollowing is a highly evasive memory injection technique. Instead of simply running the DCR-RAT executable on the disk, the attacker identifies a legitimate, running, and trusted Windows process. In this case, it was ASMET compiler.exe and suspends it.
Then what?
They then overwrite the memory space of that legitimate process with the malicious DCR-RAT code, and then they restart the process.
So when a forensic analyst or a security tool looks at the running processes, it sees AskNet compiler.exe, a legitimate Microsoft process.
But what's actually running inside it is the malware. It runs directly in memory, making file-based detection impossible, and process monitoring systems often blind to the malicious intent as the parent process is trusted.
What kind of damage did DCR-RAT inflict once it was established?
DCR-RAT is a powerful remote access Trojan. It first established persistence by dropping a .url file in the Windows startup folder, ensuring the malware restarts after a reboot.
And then it calls home.
It sends a comprehensive system, fingerprint details about the OS, hardware, network configuration back to its command and control server. The attackers then leveraged its remote desktop capabilities, key logging features, and in the specific campaign, used its in-memory execution ability to drop a cryptocurrency miner onto the system.
So they were immediately monetizing the compromise while maintaining full remote access for whatever they plan to do later. Moving on, let's connect this to the larger threat ecosystem. The ClearFake infrastructure shows how these techniques are shared and scaled, supporting both the NetSupport RAT and Latrodectus campaigns.
ClearFake is essentially a malicious JavaScript framework that's been deployed across hundreds of compromised websites. We know it's shared infrastructure because security researchers have found identical JavaScript clipboard injection functions and, interestingly, actual comments written in Russian within the code itself,
which suggests a common origin or a shared developer base among these threat groups.
It certainly points that way.
Let's look at the NetSupport RAT campaign. It used fake DocuSign and Octalures to target enterprise users, and this relies on another highly effective stealth technique, DLL sideloading.
DLL sideloading is the core trick here. The victim executes the ClickFix command, which downloads a ZIP archive. This archive contains not only the malware, but crucially, a handful of legitimate dependency files, including a trusted Java component, jp2launcher.exe, or sometimes an executable from a file transfer program like filezilla.exe.
So the system trusts that legitimate executable.
It does. When the legitimate executable runs, it automatically attempts to load required dynamic link libraries, or DLLs. The attacker places a malicious DLL like msvcp140.dll or libsquite3.dll in the same directory.
And Windows searches the local directory first.
Exactly. So the legitimate program loads the malicious file instead of the real one, and the malware is executed under the guise of the trusted process.
That is extremely difficult to spot. What about the loader itself? Was it sophisticated?
Very robust. It relied on dynamic API resolving and sophisticated data decryption using a rolling XOR key. Security researchers found that the decryption key was often the seemingly innocuous string https.google.com.
Using something mundane to hide something lethal.
Yes. And persistence for NetSupport was typically achieved via a scheduled task running the payload, which was client32.exe.
And Latrodectus, which quickly adopted the ClickFix method in early 2025, also employed a specific psychological trick in the execution itself.
That's right. Latrodectus added a visual element designed to instantly reassure the victim that the fix had worked. When the user pastes and executes the heavily obfuscated command, the very last line printed to the terminal or console includes a benign-sounding final comment.
Something like Cloud Identificator 2031.
Exactly. It immediately closes the loop for the victim. They see a confirmation ID and think, great, I fixed it. It gives them positive reinforcement that they successfully completed the security step, masking the fact that the entire infection chain has just been launched in the background.
Can you walk us through the technical Latrodectus chain?
The pasted script uses curl.exe, another LOL bin, to download a JavaScript file. This JavaScript is then executed by the Windows scripting host, cscript.exe,
which in turn fetches the next stage.
The JavaScript then retrieves and runs an MSI file, a Microsoft software installer, using mzxs.exe. This MSI file finally drops the Latrodectus DLL payload, libsuf.dll, again using DLL sideloading with a legitimate binary, often a component of a browser or some file utility.
So that's a multi-stage attack that uses 4 separate, legitimate Windows tools just to execute the download.
And researchers noted that the newest Latrodectus droppers even incorporate massive junk variables within the code, things like variable palantir38.
Which serve no purpose other than what?
Inflating the script size and confusing automated static analysis scanners, it's a constant arms race.
Let's look at the Lumma Stealer campaign, which showcases yet another layer of technical evasion using typo squatting and weaponizing the pretty obscure AutoID scripting language.
This campaign starts with redirection. It employs typo squatting, registering domain names that are slight misspellings of popular sites. In this case, redirecting victims to a fake IP logger domain, iplogger.co.
The user is presented with a fake verification screen, and the copy command again leverages MSHTA.
Right, the Microsoft HTML application host used to run HTML applications. It uses that to download and encode in PowerShell script.
And that's just the first step. The PowerShell script leads to the highly complex deployment using AutoID.
Yes. The script drops a stager, partycontinued.exe, which contains its own nested resources, including a Microsoft cabinet archive named boat.pst.
And the stager is hyper-aware of its environment.
Its very first action is to look for process names associated with security software. It's searching for strings like opsvc or rusa. If it detects active security monitoring, it can pause or abort the attack entirely.
So it's checking to see if the coast is clear before unleashing the payload.
Precisely. If it's clear, it uses the AutoIT scripting language to construct a new Lumma loading method. AutoIT is an automation language, and it's often overlooked by security tools.
How does it use it?
The stager meticulously extracts fragmented files from that CAB archive to rebuild a complete copy of the legitimate AutoI3 script engine, often giving it a benign name like Slovenia.com.
Why go through the effort of rebuilding AutoIT engine from fragments? That seems like a lot of work.
It's extreme stealth. Security tools might flag a standard AutoIT3.exe file being used in a suspicious context. By fragmenting the binary and running a customized rebuilt copy, the attacker ensures that the final payload, which they name simply G, is executed as an AutoIT compiled script, a .a3x file, using a process that cannot be easily traced back to known malicious AutoIT usage patterns. The complexity is the defense.
We focused heavily on Windows, but ClickFix proves it's not OS dependent. The threat is adapting to cross-platform environments. Tell us about the campaign targeting macOS users with the Atomic macOS Sealer, or AMOS.
This June 2025 campaign confirmed that the ClickFix principle works on any operating system with a functional command line interface. They targeted macOS users, often impersonating service providers like Spectrum Internet Services, leveraging the same panic-inducing error fix lore.
The technical environment on macOS is completely different, but the social engineering step is identical.
It is. The sources noted that, ironically, the instructions displayed to the user were sometimes still visually designed for Windows, telling them to press Win+R, which is a huge red flag that should instantly trigger suspicion for a Mac user.
But the command itself was different.
Yes, the command copied to the clipboard was specifically tailored for the macOS Bash shell environment.
And that command was designed for extremely high-value theft, targeting credentials, and crypto wallets using AMOS. What did that specialized macOS Bash script do?
This attack sequence is chilling because it directly targets the user's highest security boundary, the system password. The copied command was an aggressive script designed to repeatedly prompt the user for their system password under the guise of verification.
And it validates that password using a legitimate macOS utility, DSCL oftenly.
So it doesn't just phish the password, it confirms and steals it using a built-in tool.
Right.
It validates it, temporarily stores the valid password, and then immediately uses it to elevate privileges.
And how does it do that?
It executes the critical command sudo-s satrec. The sudo- part uses the stolen password to run as a super user, and satrec is the key technical bypass.
What does satrec do in this context?
It clears the extended file attributes. In macOS, downloaded files automatically gain a quarantine flag. Clearing this flag bypasses a fundamental macOS security measure designed to warn users about untrusted downloaded content.
So once the quarantine is cleared,
The script makes the downloaded file executable using chmod plus X and runs the AMOS malware, which then sweeps up browser cookies, stored passwords, and crypto wallet credentials.
this shows that the threat actors aren't just adapting to different operating systems. They're figuring out the single most critical security feature in each environment and building the ClickFix command to disarm it manually.
It demonstrates a very high level of OS-specific tradecraft being industrialized.
Now let's explore the ecosystem behind this acceleration. These highly detailed multi-stage attacks are being commoditized and sold as service kits.
This is the driving force behind that 500% surge. ClickFix is no longer reserved for state-sponsored or elite criminal groups. Threat actors are openly selling ClickFix builders, they call them Win+R builders, on dark web forums.
And this lowers the barrier to entry significantly.
Hugely. It allows actors with minimal technical skill to deploy highly sophisticated campaigns.
What kind of criminal market pricing are we talking about for a tool that guarantees a foothold in an organization?
The pricing structure reflects a mature, tiered product. Subscriptions for access to the builder kits and infrastructure range widely, from maybe US $200 a month for basic access up to US $1,500 a month for fully managed, high-volume campaign tools.
But you can just buy the templates.
Exactly. Threat actors can buy the source code for specific landing page templates for a one-time fee of US $200 to US $500.
And these kits come preloaded with every feature necessary to maximize the success rate and evasion capabilities.
They offer a menu of configuration options. For example, the option to display a decoy PDF or a benign-looking error message after the payload executes to keep the victim calm. They include specific timing configurations for payload execution.
And most importantly, they offer robust anti-detection features.
Things like automated VM detection and evasion, often labeled anti-VM, and automated UAC or user account control bypass capabilities.
UAC bypass is critical. That's the prompt Windows gives you when a program tries to make system changes. If the kit includes an automated bypass, the user never gets that critical warning.
Exactly. And the builders also provide a rich variety of visual templates, cloning high-trust brands like Cloudflare, Google Meet, and Okta, often with multi-language support built in for rapid deployment across English, German, French, and Portuguese targets.
The sources mention that these kits explicitly market their ability to bypass security products.
Oh, they openly claim guaranteed bypass of standard antivirus and web protection. They specifically mention Microsoft Defender Smart Screen in their advertisements. The threat actors are marketing security evasion as the core guaranteed feature of their product,
which forces defenders to move away from signature detection and focus entirely on behavioral monitoring.
It has to be the focus.
Speaking of adaptation, we have to spend significant time discussing the terrifying evolution of ClickFix, a subvariant called consent fix. This attack completely bypasses the endpoint and aims directly at identity systems, making MFA almost useless.
Consent fix is perhaps the most significant evolutionary jump we've seen. It's an attack that occurs entirely inside the browser. It never requires the user to press Win+R or execute any local command.
So it circumvents endpoint detection altogether.
Right, it targets the identity layer, not the device.
How does the attacker convince the user to hand over access without executing any code?
It begins on a legitimate, compromised website, again, bypassing email filters entirely. The lure asks the victim to verify their humanity by entering their business email address into a field often disguised as a capped TCHA.
And this action triggers a cascade of legitimate events.
It does. When the victim submits their email, the malicious script initiates a legitimate third-party login request to Microsoft. This request generates a standard Microsoft login page that the victim is directed to, which immediately builds trust.
But crucially, the URL of this legitimate Microsoft page contains a valid AOF token.
That is the perfect storm of deception. The victim is logged in, they see a trusted Microsoft URL in their address bar, and that URL contains an access token, the equivalent of a temporary digital key to their account.
And what are they told to do?
The victim is then socially engineered to copy that entire legitimate URL, which is extremely long and complex, containing the token, and paste it back into the fake verification field on the initial malicious page.
The attacker captures this token,
which is the key needed to authenticate to Microsoft services via Azure's command line interface.
This means the attacker gains control over the victim's Microsoft account, access, and data without ever needing their password and without bypassing multi-factor authentication.
Exactly. If the user is already logged into a Microsoft service, consent fix just steals their current access ticket. It exploits the inherent trust in first-party applications and the protocol itself.
The user's identity is hijacked in a ClickFix fashion, but the fix is pasting the access token back to the attacker.
Since no password phishing is involved, MFA, passkeys, and other anti-phishing controls have zero impact.
And the real implication lies in what the open token grants them access to. We're talking about legacy open scopes.
Yes. These are older, often implicitly trusted permission sets within Microsoft Entra ID environments. These legacy scopes were sometimes configured to grant incredibly broad access, like mail.readwrite, directory.readall, or group.readwriteall.
So the attacker uses the stolen token and Azure tools to immediately begin directory enumeration.
Which means mapping the entire organization. They use the access to map user accounts, groups, the organizational structure, and identify high-value targets like executives or security admins.
All because the user was tricked into copying and pasting a legitimate URL token.
It turns a simple verification click into a massive enterprise breach.
This underscores the depth of the problem. Let's shift our focus to detection and defense. Given that ClickFix relies entirely on manual execution into trusted system components, where should forensic analysts look for the telltale signs?
Since the most common execution path involves the user pressing Win+R and running the command, Windows leaves a persistent trace in the registry. This is a critical forensic artifact called the run MRU.
The most recently used registry key.
That's the one.
Where is that key located and why is it so crucial?
It's located under HKey Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Explorer Run MRU. This key stores a direct, unencrypted history of every command executed from the Run dialog box. It's a digital smoking gun.
So what specific indicators of suspicion should analysts look for when scanning that Run MRU data?
You're looking for several clear signs. 1. Heavily obfuscated content, especially long strings of base64 or fragmented commands. 2. The presence of specific LOL bin keywords like PowerShell, meshta, curl, or reget launching downloads or scripts.
And calls to suspicious domains.
Right, calls to non-standard domains or direct IP addresses. And 4, the confirmation strings we discussed earlier. The attackers often embed their own fake success message in the command like, I am not a robot recap TCHU verification ID XXXX.
Finding those strings is definitive proof of a ClickFix attempt.
Absolutely.
That's great for the Win+R path, but we noted that attackers are shifting to the Win+X quick access menu to launch terminals, which bypasses Run MRU logging. How do we detect ClickFix executions that use this alternate path?
Detecting Win+X attacks requires high-fidelity monitoring. You have to leverage endpoint detection and response, or EDR, telemetry, and Windows event logs. Specifically, analysts need to focus on security event ID 4688, which logs process creation events.
And what's the suspicious correlation you're looking for there?
You have to look for PowerShell.exe or other terminals like CMD.exe being spawned by Explorer.exe, the Windows shell process.
Because that indicates the user launched the terminal directly from the desktop shell or the quick access menu.
Exactly. And that activity, combined with suspicious child processes like circuitl.exe or mshta.exe running immediately after, is a huge red flag. Additionally, monitoring event ID 4663, which logs object access, can reveal files being accessed or dropped under the Windows WinX folder path, linking the execution back to the quick access menu launcher.
That shifts the defense burden from simple registry checks to complex, real-time behavioral analysis.
It does, but technical controls are still vital. If we can't stop the user from pasting the command, we can try to stop the command from running.
So what are the tangible technical mitigation strategies we can implement?
A layered defense starts with cloud-delivered protection. Solutions like Microsoft Defender Antivirus and SmartScreen are effective at detecting and blocking the network connections to known C2 domains and can often flag the malicious landing pages themselves.
But the core technical defense must be attack surface reduction.
And that means restricting the attack path itself. Organizations can use group policy or configuration management tools to fundamentally change the system environment. One strong measure is disabling the Run dialog box, Win+R, entirely.
Or at least removing the run option from the start menu for general users.
Right. If users can't access the run box, the primary ClickFix vector is neutralized.
That sounds effective, but it probably causes some internal friction with power users, right?
It requires a cost-benefit analysis. Disabling Win+R is disruptive in certain environments, but it's far less disruptive than a full ransomware incident.
What's a less severe alternative?
You can use Windows Defender Application Control, or WDAC, or other application whitelisting tools to create a policy, one that specifically prohibits the launch of native Windows binaries like PowerShell, MSHTA, or curl from the Run dialog, while still allowing these tools to run from trusted locations like system directories or standard terminal processes.
And given the heavy obfuscation, monitoring the code that does run is essential.
Absolutely crucial. Enabling PowerShell script block logging provides defenders with visibility into the code after it is decoded and executed by the PowerShell engine. Even if the initial command is a huge base 64 string, script block logging provides the plain text of what was actually run.
Which is invaluable for forensic analysis and threat hunting.
Invaluable.
Now we come to the part that is universally cited as the ultimate defense challenge, the human element. ClickFix is fundamentally a social engineering problem designed to exploit trust and obedience.
The sources confirm a difficult truth, which is that typical cybersecurity awareness training is failing to keep pace. Research indicates that employees who take annual standard awareness courses are often just as likely to fall for a highly sophisticated, context-aware ClickFix phishing attack as those who haven't had the training.
That is a damning indictment. If the training isn't working, what is the core problem that needs fixing?
The problem is twofold. One, the training is too technical. It focuses on jargon, checking obscure URLs, or looking for all things that are bypassed by high-fidelity clones and redirectors. Two, training focuses on what to do, not why the attacker is asking you to do it. The attackers are exploiting implicit trust in system solutions and a desire to obey instructions to fix an immediate error.
So what's the radical shift required to effectively mitigate this social engineering layer? We need to focus on behavior.
The solution is to shift the focus entirely onto explaining how these attacks manipulate behavior and how to recognize the red flags of suspicious behavior, regardless of the visual lure. Training must emphasize the context of the requested action.
Give us some tangible examples of the behavioral red flags training should focus on.
The central message must be, trust is not transferable.
What do you mean by that?
Training should emphasize that a legitimate website or application will never ask you to copy and paste a long, complex command string into the Windows Run dialog or a system terminal as a verification step or a fix. That action is inherently suspicious.
Okay, that's number one.
Number two, be suspicious if an application asks you to enter your business email address for a simple capitichet or human verification, especially if that action immediately leads to a new login screen.
That's the consent fix lure.
Precisely. Three, If you encounter what appears to be a system error, like a BSOD or a file corruption alert, and it provides instructions involving Win+R, stop immediately. Verify the fix through known legitimate channels or IT support, not the screen that presented the error.
And finally, for Mac users.
Yes. If you are a Mac user, any prompt demanding your system password repeatedly, especially in conjunction with a warning about a file or system error, should be treated with extreme caution. The attacker is trying to steal your master key.
That reframing suspicion toward the required behavior is the only way to tackle attacks that are custom designed to leverage the user's trust in the concept of a quick fix.
It requires cultivating a culture of skepticism where employees are rewarded, not penalized, for questioning instructions that involve manual command execution.
This deep dive has shown us the unprecedented sophistication and speed with which the threat landscape is evolving. ClickFix is lethal because it weaponizes the user, combining social engineering with the stealth of living off the land binaries and process injection to bypass layers of security.
And we've seen the rapid industrialization of this technique through builder kits and its dangerous evolution into identity theft with ConsentFix, which hijacks legitimate OAuth tokens to bypass MFA and achieve massive directory enumeration.
And we established that mitigation demands a powerful dual approach. Robust technical controls like attack surface reduction via app control policies and granular logging, coupled with a fundamental behavioral shift in security awareness training to focus on user recognition of suspicious activity rather than technical jargon.
The future of defense against threats like this lies not just in better technology, but in better critical thinking.
As we close out, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought that encapsulates the philosophical challenge posed by ClickFix and its inevitable future variants.
Go on.
If threat actors can so seamlessly use legitimate system tools and the fundamental concept of fixing a problem to convince people to install sophisticated remote access malware on their own devices, what fundamental trust mechanisms in our daily digital life are next on the chopping block?
That's a good question.
How do we, the users, verify the integrity of a fix when the fix itself has become the primary weapon of attack?
It forces us to realize that every unexpected prompt, every suggested shortcut, and every demand for verification must now be viewed with deep, immediate suspicion. It shifts the critical burden of security from the software back onto the vigilant thinking of the individual user.
Food for thought. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.